more or less empty project here. Let's put a little something in there. So in our HTML file, just type HTML, and it should bring up a little menu of things. And one of those things should say simple HTML5 starting point. If you get that, hit enter, and it'll make a little HTML document for you, just like that. Piece of cake. Page title, what's that? In the HTML, index.html, file index.html.
So my options are HTML, HTML5, and HTML.
So just these three, not this top one? It just says HTML, but then it has a little thing here that says simple HTML5 is starting point. I don't think it is. Does almost everyone have this? No? HTML language basics, it says in parentheses. But I didn't install anything called that. I actually got rid of my Bootstrap. Oh, you're using Sublime. Yeah, of course you don't have it. Yeah. So make an HTML document. I can copy and paste this into Slack. I'll do that in just a sec, okay? We're going to change a couple of things. First of all, the page title should already be highlighted. Go ahead and change that to Chris Mess. A whole mess. Oh, Chris is. Right, you don't have to type that if you don't want to. And you'll notice there's already a link to a style sheet. Main.css, we named ours index.css. So change that to index.css. And it has a script tag here to main.js. Let's change it to index.js because that's the name of our file. Also, putting it in the head is going to be a problem for us because we're going to do stuff to the DOM before the DOM has loaded. So we're going to want to move that script tag, move that script tag to the end of the body, right before the closing body tag. So inside the body, but at the very end. That way, everything on the page will have already loaded by the time we try to run our script. Having done that, all right, I'm going to copy this into Slack for those who are not using Visual Studio Code. There we go. So you can copy it out of there, Daniel. Yep. Let's put at least a little something on the page. Now I want to open this in a browser. On the website, if you went to the Tools section under Visual Studio Code extensions, one of the ones I had there was Open in Browser. If you installed this, then Alt-B should just open this page right in a browser. There it is. If you did not install that, you should be able to do the same thing from the command line. If you're in the command line in that same folder, on Mac, you should just be able to say open index.html, which will open it in your default browser. That's what I just said. So on a Mac, open space index.html. On Windows, that is start index.html. So that will just open any file in its default, default application. So open index.html on Mac, start index.html on Windows, and hopefully it opens up a new browser window with that file, and you should see your H1 here. Now we're going to be using our developer tools a lot. We may as well go ahead and open them so we can see them. So on a Mac, unfortunately this is another one that's different. Option Command J. On Windows that is Shift Control J, I think. Or is it Shift Alt? I think it's Shift Control J. Somebody try that and tell me if it works. Did it like has console? Okay. So Shift Control J or Option Command J opens up your JavaScript console. These are your dev tools. There are several tabs there, as you can see. The next one over is Elements, which should show you the actual DOM. So here you see your body, your H1. It actually highlights things as you go over them. You can see any style sheets that are applied, including those that are built in. It's pretty nice. In the JavaScript console, you can actually type JavaScript commands, and they work. So I could say h1 equals document.querySelector, the string h1, and lo and behold, I get my h1. And I can do stuff with it. h1.textContent equals magic. Yeah, totally works. So very handy. Also, any errors that you've introduced show up here. So we want to make sure that we correctly linked our JavaScript and CSS files. One way we can check that is on the Sources tab in your DevTools. If you see all 3 files listed, you should be good. But let's put at least one line in both of those files so we can actually see them working. So how about let's open up index.js. And let's just say console.log, the string. It works. Refresh the page, and you should see in the console, it works. So console.log, pretty handy for debugging. If you want to console.log one of your variables, see that its value is actually what you think it is. That's a nice way to do that. Console.log is officially not part of the JavaScript standard, but every browser implements it. They just might implement it slightly differently. But you can do a lot of stuff with the console. There's also console.warn. Trouble. There you go. Omar coming. Warning. Refresh the page. Get your warning. Omar coming. Console error. Snap. Refresh. And see, it looks a little different. So, console, very handy thing to use. But the point here is our JavaScript does work. So hopefully you see all these things. And you know that your JavaScript is linked up right. So let's make sure our CSS is also hooked up right by just putting a little something in there. So we said the simplest selectors we have are just the names of the tags themselves. So you can even style the body. So let's style the body. So you put a selector just like you would in JavaScript, except they're not strings. You don't need quotes. They're just CSS selectors. And that will style the body element. You need curly braces. And then we can just apply any number of rules. So we could say something like font family. Let's say Helvetica, comma, Arial, comma, sans serif. What does sans serif mean? Yeah. Doesn't have the little things that are called serifs. So if you look here, we got this little thingy at the top of the H. We got a little thingy at the top of the R and the I. Those are called serifs. So sans serif font is something that doesn't have those. Helvetica and Arial are examples of fonts that are like that. So what we've done here is specify fallback fonts in case the first one we list isn't found. So Helvetica is installed by default on all Macs, but not on Windows. So if Helvetica isn't found, we want to use Arial, which is probably on your Mac too. But since Arial is just a shameless ripoff of Helvetica, we may as well use Helvetica if it's there. Failing to find either of those, we'll just use the default sans serif font for your platform. Yeah.
So the order does matter.
Order does matter. It's from left to right. So if it finds the first one, it'll use it. Otherwise, it'll use the next one. Otherwise, it'll use the last one. So the order is important. So refresh the page, and you should see the font change to a sans serif font of one kind or another. Then we know the CSS is, in fact, working. And victory is ours. Questions about this boring page that doesn't do anything yet? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, something to point out in Visual Studio Code at least. You'll notice on your tab here, you've got a big dot here. If you see that dot on a tab, that tab is not saved. So keep that in mind too. If you're starting to lose your mind, make sure you saved, because it happens to the best of us. Cool so far?